My family kicked my 7-year-old and me out during Christmas dinner. You should leave and never return, my sister said. Christmas is so much better without you, Mom added. I didn't beg. I just said, then you won't mind me doing this. 5 minutes later, they were begging me to undo it. Technically, I didn't even get to finish my meal. There was still gravy on my plate and a fork in my hand, hovering like it had forgotten what job it was supposed to do. My 7-year-old daughter Mia had taken 2 polite bites of her roll and was quietly counting the peas on her plate the way kids do when the air in a room gets sharp. My sister's kids bounced in their chairs and talked over each other, nobody stopping them, while Mia sat still and silent, already knowing which kids were expected to behave. Across from me, my sister Eliza was smiling like she'd been practicing it in the mirror. That special kind of smile that says, I'm being reasonable, while her eyes are saying, I'm about to ruin your life and call it boundaries. Connor, Eliza's husband, sat beside her, nodding along at nothing, the human equivalent of a screensaver. He'd been hovering around our family for years, always a little too comfortable in my parents' house, always acting like the guest room had his name on it. Connor was the kind of man who could watch a building burn down and ask where the marshmallows were. My mother dabbed the corner of her mouth with her napkin like we were at some elegant holiday dinner and not a slow-motion family car crash. My father stared at his mashed potatoes with the intensity of someone negotiating with them to become a different life. The evening had been tense from the start. Little comments, little digs. Oh, Rachel, you look tired, Mom had said the second I walked in, like fatigue was a moral failing. Eliza had glanced at Mia's dress and said, cute, very simple, as if a 7-year-old should be dressed like she was headed to a gala. Connor had asked, with a straight face, so, are you still in that phase where things are tight? I'd smiled through it. I'd done what I always do. Swallow, nod, pretend. Because it was Christmas. Because Mia was watching. Because I'd promised myself that this year would be different. And then, somewhere between the green beans and Eliza's third passive-aggressive compliment about her own centerpiece, she decided she was done pretending. She set down her fork like she was putting down a gavel. We need to talk, she said. My stomach sank. Not because I didn't expect it, because I did, but because I knew exactly what kind of talk this was going to be. The kind where I'm not allowed to have feelings, and if I do, they get called dramatic. Eliza leaned back in her chair. It's been a lot, and Mom and Dad agree. My father didn't look up. My mother didn't protest. Connor chewed slowly, like he'd been waiting for this course. Eliza, I said, keeping my voice even. What are you doing? She tilted her head. We've all decided you should leave, and never return. There it was, clean, practiced, like she'd rehearsed it with a ring light. Mia looked up from her peas. My mother chimed in immediately, like she couldn't bear to let Eliza have the spotlight for more than 2 seconds. Christmas is so much better without you. And she said it softly, almost kindly, like she was talking about a bad candle scent. I blinked. Once. Twice. I looked at Dad. He finally lifted his eyes, and for a second, just a second, I thought he might say something. Anything. A protest. A correction. A simple, hold on. But he didn't. He just looked tired, and silent, and complicit. Mia's little hand tightened around her fork. I felt something in my chest crack, quietly, politely, like a plate slipping off a counter in another room. And I knew I had 2 choices. I could beg, I could explain. I could do the whole humiliating routine where I try to prove I deserve to exist in my own family. Or I could stop auditioning. I set my fork down. Mia, I said gently, keeping my eyes on her. Honey, Can you go grab your coat? And your little backpack? We're leaving. She didn't hesitate. She slid out of her chair like she'd been waiting for permission. Okay, she said. No argument. No tears. Just relief wrapped in a child's voice. She walked out of the dining room toward the hallway, and something about how quickly she went, how easily, made me feel sick. Like she'd been carrying this discomfort longer than I wanted to admit. The moment she disappeared around the corner, the room shifted. Eliza crossed her arms. Good. That's settled. Connor gave a little sigh, like we'd just resolved a scheduling conflict. My mother's mouth tightened. Rachel, don't make this harder than it has to be. I stared at them. All of them. And I felt my face do something unexpected. It smiled. Not a warm smile. Not a friendly one. The kind of smile you make when you realize you've been trying to win a rigged game. Okay, I said calmly. Eliza looked smug. Finally. I stood up slowly, pushing my chair back. Then you won't mind me doing this. They all watched me like they were waiting for a tantrum, for tears, for a dramatic speech. Instead, I walked past the dining room doorway into the kitchen and stopped at the cupboard near the end of the counter. I'd put them there earlier, tucked away, hidden behind the stack of holiday platters like some pathetic little secret. I'd told myself I was being careful, thoughtful, waiting for the right moment. Turns out the right moment was the moment they told me I didn't belong. I opened the cupboard and pulled out 3 pieces of paper. Plain. Crisp. Heavy. Each one had a name scrawled on the front in thick black marker. Mom. Dad. Eliza. Eliza's brows lifted. What is that? Connor scoffed. Are those cards? My mother actually laughed, like she couldn't help herself. Rachel, what are you doing? This is ridiculous. I looked at her. Is it? Dad finally spoke, his voice flat. If you're trying to guilt us... Oh no, I said, still smiling. This isn't guilt. This is just consequences. Eliza stood up, exasperated. You think we need your gifts? You think we're going to miss whatever little... I didn't let her finish. I took the one labeled Mom and tore it straight down the middle. The sound was soft. Paper ripping shouldn't be that loud, but in that room it felt like a gunshot. My mother's smile faltered. Rachel. I tore the one labeled Dad next. Slow. Clean. Deliberate. Dad's face tightened. Connor sat up a little straighter, like his brain had finally loaded. Eliza's smugness cracked at the edges. Stop it. What are you... I tore the one labeled Eliza last. That one? I didn't even hesitate. I dropped the pieces onto the counter in 3 neat piles, like offerings. There was a beat of silence where none of them moved. Then Connor barked out a laugh, too loud and too forced. Okay. Wow. That's... insane. Eliza's voice went sharp. You're proving our point. Mom shook her head like she was watching a stranger. This is exactly why... I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I just turned. Mia was in the hallway, already in her coat, tiny backpack slung over her shoulder. She looked up at me with wide eyes, but she didn't look surprised. I took her hand. We're going, I said, and we walked out the front door. Cold air hit my face, the kind of cold that makes your lungs wake up. As we stepped down the porch steps, I glanced back through the window without meaning to. I saw them staring at the counter, then moving, not angry anymore, curious. Mom leaned forward and picked up a torn piece. Dad came closer. Eliza snatched something and started pressing it together like a puzzle. Their faces changed in real time. Smug to confused, confused to pale, pale to panicked. And then, Through the glass, I saw my mother's mouth open wide, like she was screaming. I couldn't hear it clearly at first. Then I could. The door flew open behind me. "Rachel!" Footsteps. Fast. Clumsy. Eliza's voice, higher than I'd ever heard it. Wait! Come back!" Mia's hand tightened in mine as we reached the car. "Rachel!" Mom's voice cracked. Please, you can't." Dad sounded different too. Not calm. Not silent. "Rachel, stop! Just stop and talk!" I opened the car door, still holding Mia's hand. I looked at their faces, pale, frantic, transformed. 5 minutes ago, they'd told me Christmas was better without me. Now they were begging me to reverse something they still couldn't admit out loud. I slid into the driver's seat. Mia climbed in beside me. I started the engine, and I drove away. My sister Eliza is 6 years older than me. That matters more than you'd think. 6 years is the difference between being the baby everyone fusses over and the kid who's old enough to know better. 6 years is the difference between being precious and being useful. Eliza was the golden child before she had a full set of teeth. My mom used to say she was a miracle, like she'd personally negotiated with the universe for a daughter who could smile on command. Eliza was the kid strangers complimented in grocery stores. "What a little lady," they'd say. "So well behaved." I was the kid behind her, holding the cart, being told not to touch anything. If Eliza cried, the world stopped. If I cried, I was dramatic. Eliza got dance lessons. I got told to watch her while Mom ran errands. Eliza got, "She's just passionate." I got, "Why can't you be more like your sister?" Holidays were where it really showed. Eliza would open gift after gift while everyone watched. She'd squeal perfectly, laugh perfectly, hug Mom perfectly. My mother loved that. Loved the performance of it. Loved having a daughter who could make her look like the kind of mother people complimented. I'd get something practical. Pajamas, a sweater, a book. Then I'd get handed a trash bag and told to clean up the wrapping paper. And the craziest part is, I didn't even know it was wrong for a long time. When you grow up inside a system, you assume it's just how gravity works. By the time I was a teenager, I'd perfected the art of making myself small. I learned which subjects made my mother sigh, which opinions made Dad go quiet, which emotions made Eliza roll her eyes. So I stopped having them. Or I stopped showing them anyway. I left for college and thought maybe distance would fix it. I thought maybe being away would make my family miss me. They didn't. They missed having someone to blame when Eliza was unhappy, but that's not the same thing. I met my husband Daniel in my mid-20s. He wasn't loud. He wasn't flashy. He was the kind of man who would quietly hand you a cup of coffee without making a big deal about it, like kindness was something you were allowed to receive without earning. On our third date, I mentioned my sister and my mom, laughing like it was normal. Daniel didn't laugh back. "That's not normal," he said. I remember staring at him like he'd spoken another language. He said it again, softer. "Rachel, that's not okay." No one had ever said that to me before. We got married a year later. My parents acted supportive in public. Eliza acted thrilled for Instagram. Connor, who was still just Eliza's boyfriend at the time, made a joke about how Daniel was brave to marry into our family. Daniel smiled politely and didn't take the bait. Daniel worked as a construction engineer. He was proud of it. He liked building things that lasted, liked solving problems most people didn't even notice were there. He worked long hours on big projects, commercial builds, renovations, entire sections of city blocks that used to be empty lots. It paid well, not private jet well, but well enough that we weren't constantly counting pennies. And because I'm apparently incapable of not trying to win my family's love, Daniel and I quietly started helping my parents. Nothing insane, nothing dramatic, Just a consistent $200 a month, every month, like a little financial life support line. Sometimes more if something came up. Car trouble, a utility bill, an emergency that somehow always arrived right after Eliza bought something expensive. My parents never thanked me properly, not once in a way that felt real. It was more like they accepted it, like it was a natural resource that had finally started producing again. Eliza took credit for it in her own special way. She'd say things like, "I told them we'd figure it out," as if she'd personally worked overtime to cover the payment. Connor would nod and say, "Family takes care of family," and I would swallow the irritation because Daniel would squeeze my hand under the table and remind me, without words, that I wasn't crazy. Then came the day everything broke. 6 months ago, Daniel died at work. He was on site for a routine walkthrough, a normal day, a day he didn't think would be his last. A scaffold platform collapsed, just gave out under him. Later we learned there had been complaints, warnings, little corners cut because someone wanted to save time, money, paperwork. They called it a tragic accident in the first statement, like tragedy is something that just happens randomly, like weather. But the investigation called it preventable. I remember getting the call. I remember the way my body went cold. I remember sitting on my kitchen floor with my phone pressed to my ear and thinking, this can't be real. This can't be my life. Then it was. After the funeral, everything got practical in the worst way. Bills didn't pause because I was grieving. Groceries didn't become free because I'd lost my husband. Mia still needed school clothes and dinners and bedtime stories, and I was suddenly doing all of it alone. The $200 a month to my parents stopped immediately, not out of spite, out of reality. I could barely keep my own lights on. My family noticed the missing money faster than they noticed my grief. Mom started calling more often, but not to ask how I was, to ask, in that careful voice, whether I was still managing. Eliza asked if I was being smart with my finances, like Daniel's death was a budgeting issue. Connor made a joke about how life insurance must be nice, and then laughed when no one else did. I didn't ask them for help right away. I lasted longer than I should have, because asking my family for anything feels like handing them a weapon. But 1 month I had to. Mia got sick. I missed work. The car needed a repair. The numbers didn't work. So I asked. Not for a fortune, not for a bailout, just enough to cover the gap. My parents sent a small amount, and then my mother posted about it. A Facebook post with a sad emoji and a smiling family photo like they had just donated a kidney. "Sometimes you have to step up for family," she wrote. "Even when it's hard. Praying Rachel learns to stand on her own again soon." Eliza commented first, "We're always here for her." Connor reacted with a thumbs up. I wanted to crawl out of my own skin. I didn't tell anyone that Daniel and I had been sending them money for years. I didn't correct the narrative. I didn't fight. I just stopped asking for anything ever again. And I kept quiet about the one thing that might have changed everything, the payout. Because it didn't come right away. It wasn't some magical check that appeared the moment Daniel died. There were lawyers, paperwork, delays, meetings, phone calls that made my stomach twist. The company dragged its feet. Their insurers moved like molasses. Everything took time. I hired someone to handle it because I couldn't carry grief and bureaucracy at the same time without collapsing. For months, it felt like shouting into a void. And then, very recently, right before Christmas, it finally came through. A life-changing amount. More money than I'd ever seen attached to my name. I stared at the account balance the way you stare at a stranger who looks exactly like someone you lost. Like it couldn't be real. I didn't spend it. Not really. I didn't run out and buy a new car or a new wardrobe or a new personality. I still looked like myself. Still sounded like myself. Still had a kid who needed snacks and a bedtime story, but the number was there, And the first thing I thought, because I am apparently committed to learning lessons the hardest possible way, was I should help them. Mom and Dad were older, still working, still drowning in debt they never admitted out loud. Eliza was always between opportunities in the way only people with safety nets can be. Connor had a talent for turning other people's money into our plans, and I thought, maybe this could fix it. Maybe this could buy peace. Maybe if I walked into Christmas and handed them something big, something that mattered, they'd finally see me as more than a burden. So I took a massive chunk of it and prepared 3 gifts, 3 pieces of paper, 3 names. I drove to their house with Mia in the back seat, telling myself this was a fresh start, telling myself this would change everything. Meanwhile, all they could see was the version of me they'd created in their heads, the broke widow who showed up at Christmas to ask for more. They chased me all the way to the end of the driveway, Eliza barefoot on the cold pavement, Mom clutching her coat around her shoulders like she was the victim of the weather. Dad moving faster than I'd seen him move in years. Funny what urgency does when it's tied to money. "Rachel!" Mom shrieked. "Stop! Please!" "Undo it!" Connor yelled from behind them, because of course he did. Mia stared out the window, silent, her face pale in the dashboard light. I didn't stop the car. I didn't roll down the window. I just drove. Not because I was trying to be dramatic, but because I didn't trust myself to speak. Not with Mia right there hearing every word. Not with my heart hammering in my chest and my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I drove until the streets blurred. I drove until Mia whispered, "Where are we going?" And that's when it hit me. I couldn't go home. Home was a couple of towns away. I'd planned to stay at my parents' house overnight. That was the whole point. Christmas together, family together, like I could stitch us back into something whole. Now it was late. Mia was exhausted, and I wasn't about to drive 2 hours through the dark with a kid who'd just watched her grandparents throw her out like trash. So I pulled into the parking lot of a hotel off the highway. Not a motel. Not a roadside place with flickering lights and suspicious carpet stains. A real hotel. Warm lobby. Clean smell. A place where the person at the front desk smiled at Mia like she mattered. Because if I couldn't give my daughter a loving family, I could at least give her a safe room and hot chocolate. I booked a room with 2 beds. Mia kicked off her shoes and climbed onto one of them like she'd been holding her breath all day. I sat on the edge of the other bed and stared at my hands. For a minute, neither of us spoke. Then Mia said softly, "Grandma doesn't like me." My throat tightened. "Mia." "She doesn't," Mia insisted, her voice small but sure. "She likes Eliza's kids. She always gives them the good presents. She always hugs them first." I felt a sting behind my eyes, sharp and hot. "That's not your fault." Mia shrugged like a kid who has already decided the world is unfair and is just trying to understand the rules. "It's not my fault," she repeated, like she was testing the sentence. I took her hand. "No, it's not. And you don't have to make people like you by being quiet, or good, or small." Mia looked at me like she was hearing something new. "But you do." I froze. Because she wasn't wrong. Kids don't miss much. They just don't always have the words. I swallowed hard and pulled her into my arms. "I'm sorry," I whispered into her hair. "I'm so sorry." Mia yawned, the adrenaline finally wearing off. "Can we watch a movie?" "Yes," I said, voice thick. "We can watch whatever you want." We ate vending machine snacks on the bed and watched a Christmas movie where everyone learned the true meaning of family. Mia laughed at the silly parts. I laughed too, but it came out a little broken. My phone buzzed nonstop on the nightstand. Mom, Dad, Eliza, Connor, over and over. I ignored it while Mia was awake, After she finally fell asleep, sprawled sideways across the bed like a starfish, I stared at my phone until the screen dimmed. It buzzed again. "Mom," I answered. "Rachel!" Her voice burst into my ear, too bright, too high, like she'd been crying and was trying to hide it. "Oh, finally! Where are you? Are you safe? Is Mia okay?" I almost laughed. "Now you care?" "Rachel, please," she said quickly. "We didn't mean it. You know we didn't mean it." In the background, I heard Eliza's voice, sharp, angry. "Tell her to come back." Dad's voice too, low and tense. "Put it on speaker." Mom hesitated. Then I heard the click. "Rachel," Dad said, "this is ridiculous. Come back here and fix this." Eliza cut in. "Yeah, stop acting like a martyr. You're ruining Christmas." I stared at the sleeping shape of my daughter and felt my chest go tight again. "You already ruined Christmas," I said quietly. "You told me to leave and never return, with my kid sitting right there." "We were upset," Mom said fast. "Emotions were high. You know how Eliza—" "I do," I said. "I know exactly how Eliza is, and I know exactly how you are. I came to give, not to take. I came to help you, and you treated me like I was there to beg." Eliza snapped. "You don't get to tear something like that up and walk away like it meant nothing." Dad's voice rose. "Rachel, you need to fix this. You can redo it. You can write it again. Right now." There it was. Not apology, not love. Panic. I took a breath. "No," I said. "Not tonight. Not after what you said." Mom's voice cracked. "Rachel, please." "No," I repeated, and this time it felt steady. "Good night." I ended the call and turned the phone face down. My hands were shaking, but my mind was calm in a way I hadn't felt in months. Outside, cars hissed past on the wet road. Inside, Mia slept, safe. And somewhere in my parents' house, they were staring at 3 torn pieces of paper and realizing they'd just voted themselves out of the best outcome they'd ever get. For a few days after Christmas, everything went quiet. No calls, no texts, no checking in. Not even a passive-aggressive message from Eliza with a prayer hands emoji and a threat hidden behind it. At first, the silence felt like a relief, like the world had stopped shaking long enough for me to breathe. Mia went back to her routine. School, breakfast, homework. She asked fewer questions about Grandma. She didn't mention Christmas again, which somehow hurt more than if she had. I unpacked the suitcase we'd brought for what was supposed to be a family holiday. I folded Mia's little sweater and felt my stomach twist with anger all over again. Then, on the 3rd day, I opened Facebook. And there it was, a post from Eliza. A photo of her in my parents' living room, smiling in front of the tree like she'd just won an award. Connor beside her. Mom in the background holding a mug like she was starring in a wholesome holiday commercial. The caption was long. Of course it was. It started with something about family and betrayal, and ended with something about how some people show their true colors. She didn't use my name at first, which was almost worse, like I was a rumor. Then she did. "Rachel showed up on Christmas looking for sympathy," Eliza wrote. "And when we finally set boundaries, she humiliated our parents and stormed out. Some people will take everything and still demand more." Comments poured in under it. Aunts, cousins, people I hadn't spoken to in years. "Praying for your parents. Some people are so ungrateful. Poor Mom and Dad." Then Eliza went for the throat. "And yes," she wrote, "before anyone asks, Rachel got a huge payout from Daniel's death, and she won't give her own family a penny. She'd rather punish us than act like a decent human being." I stared at the screen, my hands cold. I profited off my husband's death. That's what she was implying. That I was lucky. that I should be grateful, that I owed them a cut of grief. My phone started ringing again within the hour, the flying monkeys, as my therapist would probably call them if I had the time to get one. An aunt. I just think you should apologize. Your parents are devastated. A cousin. Eliza said you went crazy and ripped up money in front of them. Another cousin. Is it true you got paid? That's wild. A message from someone I barely remembered. Family is all you have. I didn't answer at first. I made Mia lunch. I helped her with a math worksheet. I watched her color a picture of a snowman and wondered what kind of adults could look at a child and decide she didn't deserve a seat at the table. By the end of the day, I was done being quiet, because quiet had never protected me. Quiet had only made me easier to blame. I opened my bank app and pulled up the transfers I'd been making for years. $200 a month. Every month. I took screenshots. Then I scrolled back to the Facebook post my mother had made after Daniel died. The one where she bragged about sending me a small amount like it was charity. I screenshot that too. Then I typed. Not a rant, not a novel, just the truth, clean and sharp. Eliza, I wrote, you told me to leave and never return on Christmas, in front of my 7-year-old. Mom agreed. Dad stayed silent. Then I posted the receipts, years of monthly payments, quiet help I never bragged about. And right beneath it, my mother's old post, her sad emoji, her stepping up for family, her little implication that I was irresponsible. Here's what family looked like before Daniel died, I wrote. We supported Mom and Dad every month for years. I never posted about it. I never asked for applause. Here's what happened the one time I needed help. They posted about it like I'd robbed them. And for the record, I added, I didn't storm out. I left when my parents and sister told me Christmas was better without me in front of my 7-year-old daughter. I hit post. Then I turned off my phone and went to sit with Mia on the couch while she watched cartoons. It didn't take long. Within an hour, people started commenting on Eliza's post differently. Wait, you were sending them money? Why did you post about helping her? So you kicked her out and now you want her money? Eliza's comments got defensive, then angry. Then she deleted a few. Mom tried to message me privately. Dad didn't say anything, but I saw his sister, my aunt, comment, "This is disgusting." Rachel and Mia didn't deserve that. Eliza's post got edited, then edited again. Then it disappeared. The next day, the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and felt my stomach drop. Mom and Dad were there. Eliza, too. Connor standing behind her like a supportive lamp. And in Mom's hands, a cake. Like frosting could undo cruelty. I opened the door just enough to step into the frame. "Rachel," Mom said, voice too sweet. "Hi, sweetheart." I didn't answer. Eliza smiled. Not the smug one from Christmas. A new one. The kind you wear when you want something. "We just want to talk," she said. "We've all had time to cool down." Dad cleared his throat. "We're family." Mom held the cake up slightly like it was a peace offering and not a prop. "We didn't mean what we said," she rushed. "You know that." I stared at them. "You meant it enough to say it." Eliza's eyes flickered. "That was a moment." "A moment," I echoed. "A moment where you looked at my kid and decided she didn't belong." Connor leaned forward a little. "Rachel, come on. Mia needs cousins. Family." Mia appeared behind me, peeking around my leg. Mom's face lit up instantly. "Mia! Hi, baby! Come give Grandma a hug!" Mia didn't move. Her little hand curled into my shirt. Eliza's smile tightened, but she kept it glued on. "See? This is what we're talking about. We can fix this. We just need to be together." I could practically hear the unspoken part. We just need access. We just need the door open. We just need you close enough to pressure again. I took a breath. "No," I said. Mom blinked. Rachel, no, I repeated. Calm, flat, final. You don't get to throw us out and then show up with cake and pretend you're kind. You don't get access to my daughter after you proved you don't even see her as family. Dad's jaw clenched. You're being cruel. I looked at him. You taught me. Eliza's mask slipped for half a second. The anger flashed. The entitlement. Then she caught it again, quick as a snake. Rachel, she said softly, don't do something you'll regret. I smiled, just a little. I already did something I regret. And it wasn't tearing up paper. I stepped back and closed the door. I locked it, and for the first time in my life, locking someone out didn't feel like cruelty. It felt like protection. About 8 months have passed since that Christmas, long enough for the noise to fade, long enough for the truth to settle into places that can't be argued with anymore. The settlement was $2 million. I never said it out loud back then because it didn't feel real, and because I knew the moment I did, it would stop being about grief and start being about entitlement. I had planned to give my family around $500,000 of it. Enough to pay off my parents' mortgage and debts, enough for them to retire without panic, enough to give Eliza a clean reset instead of another scramble. They didn't get a single dollar. Instead, I bought a modest house outright. Nothing flashy, just solid, quiet, ours. Most of the money went straight into long-term savings and conservative investments. Mia has a college fund now, a trust, and an emergency cushion so her future never depends on people who decide her worth based on convenience. Money didn't erase the grief. I wish it worked like that. Daniel is still gone. Some mornings still hit hard. Mia still asks about her dad in small, sideways ways, questions at bedtime, pauses where she expects someone to answer. The difference is that the grief isn't tangled up with fear anymore. We're sad, but we're safe. Mia doesn't ask about Grandma now. She doesn't wonder why she wasn't wanted. She laughs more. She sleeps better. She knows this house is hers. Through the grapevine, I've heard what happened to them. My parents sold the house. Retirement fell apart. Relationships fractured. And the part that really broke them wasn't just the money, it was knowing exactly how close they were. They've told people, complained about it, replayed it, that $500,000 haunts them. I thought keeping the money might haunt me too. It doesn't. What would have haunted me is teaching my daughter that cruelty deserves rewards. I still grieve the family I hoped I had. But I chose my child's safety over approval, and that choice finally chose me back. So tell me, did I go too far or not far enough? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more.